Hello. Why am I talking to you again, you ask? Well, more news. And if I find things to be interesting, I'm going to talk about them. Number one, I put out a post, you may have seen it, you may not have, of James Freeman freaking the fuck out on, first off, on a cop who was writing him a parking ticket for being parked the wrong way on the street. I applaud that officer for being as calm and cool and collected as he was. If I was that cop, I probably would have arrested Freeman. He was yelling, he was belligerent, he was definitely attempting to incite an immediate breach of the peace. Why he would do that, I don't know. But you could just almost see the crazy spittle flying from Freeman's mouth, just praying for a response from the cop. And the cop was cool, calm, collected, knew who Freeman was. It was très magnifique. And then, of course, he turned that same level of venom onto somebody who was probably his mom's neighbor, a large black man who was also cool, calm, and collected, and just called the police on Freeman. I don't know why he called the police on Freeman. A cop just left, but whatever. I mean, way to endear the public, Freeman. He got his little panties in a wad because a cop wrote him a ticket, and he doesn't like it. He doesn't like those gosh darn rules. Good. More news is that News Now Ashtray and his wife were arrested on domestic violence charges, not against themselves, apparently, if we could trust the reporting of someone who claims to be, I think it's his stepson. The Mr. and Mrs. Ashtray were violent against their daughters or something. I'm not entirely sure of the whole story. I don't really care. But anyway, they ended up arrested and in jail for domestic violence. Congratulations. If we can trust the reporting of this person, apparently our good friend News Now Ashtray has a solid coke habit, where he brings in quite a bit of money in disability and from YouTube and stuff, and he spends it on coke, not the cola kind. Swine flu was arrested again, but that's just whatever. I mean, that guy's just retarded. And then now let's actually talk about things that are actual things. Once again, I have been presented with someone who believes that filming should be allowed in my comments. He's responded that filming should in fact be allowed in the hallways and lobbies of courthouses. And I said, no, there are lots of good reasons. He said, essentially, well, name them. And so I listed some of them off, and he wants to disagree. He thinks that all those things should be done behind closed doors. Having been a practicing first-year family law attorney, I'm just going to say that a lot of those things aren't done behind closed doors because there aren't closed doors enough to do them behind. In Placer, there's a couple rooms off of each courtroom where you can go in and you can close the door behind you and you can discuss with your client, with opposing counsel, with whoever. But there's only a couple, and like they just bring you in. Like they'll have like 10, 12, 15 people on the court's docket, and typically the way they do it, at least in Placer, is they say, okay, they figure out who everybody is, and then while they're going through, attorneys are trying to make deals with other attorneys, discussing things with their clients, and there just aren't enough rooms. There just aren't enough places. And other courthouses like Yuba County, Yolo County, San Mateo County. I mean, just a lot of the other courthouses. They're older and they just don't have rooms for it. There aren't enough places. So when you're going there, you have to make these discussions. You have to have these discussions with the opposing counsel, and the court might even say, "Hey, what if we do this?" And maybe you need to talk to your client about it. Maybe it's going to work out. Maybe it's not. Maybe there's some questions, but you need to have some time to discuss it with your client. You got to do it, and the way it works is you go out into the hallway, you look around, make sure that nobody's within listening, eavesdropping distance, and you discuss it with your client. Now, there are also other concerns, not just in what you might discuss with your client. Privacy issues, confidentiality, attorney-client privilege issues, but there's also the lack of control once there is a recording. If I'm an attorney and I look around and I don't see any members of the jury around me, I can discuss things with my client that I don't care if anybody else hears it, as long as it's not a member of the jury. But once there's a recording made, you lose control over that. You can't look around to see who's watching that video, and if it's a juror, say, "Hey, don't watch that video." It becomes a real problem. There's just so many aspects to that people in this community don't understand, and there is also privacy issues where yes, trials are public, they're open to the public, but that doesn't mean that you want your dirty laundry aired for the next rest of your life over things that were allegations that were made in your divorce or in a custody dispute, or if you're being if let's say Earl's being charged with child porn or child rape, it is a public record, and if there's enough public interest, maybe they allow filming. But if you're just Joe Schmo, and your wife doesn't like you, and so she's planted evidence to make it look like you're into child porn or whatever, and the state decides to prosecute you, maybe you can't keep people out of that courtroom, but that doesn't mean that you want for the rest of your life to have this video of you out there. There is something valid in having the public there to see the trial, and if there is anything blatantly wrong, then the public can, that news of that can get out. But there's no real value in preserving it beyond what the court already does. They already record them. They already have court reporters in there for these things. I mean, there already are measures in place. Both parties are always there. There's no ex parte communications with the judge. Both parties are there. The attorneys for both parties are there whenever there's anything going on, and that keeps he said, she said from forming. There are a lot of protections already in the court, and some courts do record, but they keep those recordings. They don't just disseminate them to whoever and wherever. Some courts do, like the Ninth Circuit televises appeals and things like that, but it's not. There are privacy issues, and it's a balancing act between what is good for the interests of the public and the defendant and the parties involved. There are balancing acts. So there are a lot of very good reasons for it. And when you counter that with statements like, well, we're trying to get transparency, well, there's not a whole lot that you can get transparency on in a court hallway. The court isn't conducting its business in the court hallway. The judge isn't making his ruling in the court hallway. That cop just pulled a dude over. Highway patrol pulled over a little Honda. Cop watch. Woot woot. Should I pull over and cop watch? Oh, hell no. I'm on the freeway. And it's rush hour, and no. Anyway, so there isn't a lot going on that there is a need for transparency on in that court hallway. News isn't being made. I can understand, like, if there's a celebrity on trial, or if there's something to do with celebrities the public wanting to be there, but at the same time, the celebrity may not want to have that. And why does it have to be in the hallway? Why can't you take pictures of them from out in public as they exit the as they exit the court? But again, that's not a transparency issue. And like, I don't understand this desire that people have to film the court clerks when they're receiving documents and things like that. They stamp things. Normally, see the way sane people do it. The sane people, you don't just bring the one copy. You bring 2 to 3 copies. I mean, it depends on what you're going to do. 2 to 4 copies usually are what you bring in. You bring in the original plus 1 to 3, I guess, is technically the way you do it. And the clerk will stamp all of them. The clerk will stamp, the original with a different stamp, but they will stamp your copies. So you have proof that you filed it. You don't need to video it. And if you have your copy and the court loses theirs, which is possible, I mean, I haven't seen it, but it's possible. I mean, the courts go out of their way, at least in my experience, to protect their copies. Not only do they have the physical copies, but at least now in California, they have electronic copies. Everything gets scanned in, and they have the actual physical documents as well. Although some courts have gone to just e-filing everything, and so I guess it's all there. But again, even when you e-file it, they will provide you with a stamped copy at some point in time, and you can print out that stamped copy. That is your proof. You don't need to film. There is just no good reason to film in a court. There's just no good reason. And I want to exercise my right. Well, again, you don't have a right to film in the court. It's a non-public forum. Well, I guess technically you do have the right, but it's very easily beaten. Again, it's a non-public forum, and the test for a non-public forum, just for First Amendment purposes, your state and state laws may vary, but courts can limit your right to film in courthouses and courtrooms, and all it has to do, all the rule only has to pass a test that says, is it reasonable and is it viewpoint neutral? And if nobody can film, that's viewpoint neutral. And the only other question is it reasonable? And I think I've laid out that yes, it is in fact reasonable. There are good reasons to not allow filming. And there are almost no reasons to require filming or to validate or justify filming in the courthouse. Anyway, that's my overly long ramble about it. Again, if your state allows it, then congratulations. If your state doesn't, I don't think they should. But at least if your state allows it, if it is on the books, then the attorneys can be aware of it, and they can be wary of people who may be recording. Because nothing would frustrate justice more than to have attorneys plant surreptitious people in courthouses solely for the purpose of attempting to eavesdrop on opposing counsel and to gather information via that kind of surreptitious means. I'm just saying there's some really good reasons. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you for watching. Thank you for keeping me entertained on my ride home. Have a good day.